Drop it on the random.
What does joining Hip Hop Now's Patreon mean? It means supporting the kind of hip hop content that keeps you updated on the latest hip hop news and moves. It means supporting the production of content like That Time in Hip Hop and Hip Hop Now Reviews. It means you care about the conversation and preservation of hip hop music and culture. Hip Hop Now Patreon supporters get exclusive access to bonus content, merchandise, and more. Support the movement. Become a supporter of Hip Hop Now podcast today at patreon.com/Hip Hop Now.
Coming up on this week's episode of Hip Hop Now podcast, Joey Badass doesn't believe albums should be longer than 14 songs. 50 Cent blames himself for the fall of Lloyd Banks and Tony Yayo's music careers. And Tekashi 6ix9ine is free on Instagram Live and even dropped a new video. It's a new world, hip hop fans.
But let's get right to the business.
Read these headlines. This album must be gone. This album must be gone.
Classic albums. Classic albums.
Come to Hip Hop Podcast. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast designed to catch you up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happened throughout the week. Returning listeners, I appreciate you. You keep coming back for more and more, but also I want to extend a special welcome to new listeners because honestly, and this is no slight, obviously, to people who have been loyal to this podcast listening every week, but I need new listeners. You know what I'm saying? It's a sign that this podcast needs to continue to go into the future. I'm approaching 200 episodes of the original podcast, Hip Hop Now Podcast, and I got a lot of fan questions I'm going to answer in that particular podcast. But honestly, I've been thinking about what's next for this podcast? What's next for me as a content creator online? And I've done a couple of things to try to poke and pull and do some research as far as, new content, as far as the Patreon, which you always hear the intro at the beginning of patreon.com. And for those who don't understand what that means, all that means is you support this podcast enough to donate one time or monthly at the tiers, which aren't expensive, obviously. Why would I do that? But those dollars support equipment, support the ideas of bringing new content like interviews or mix shows. I have a ton of ideas, things I think people would really dig, but it's your support that shows me that I need to go that route. So whether you become a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/hiphopnow or you share this podcast, that's more important than anything. Share and like button and subscribe if you want. But sharing it with other people who may not be aware that there's a lot of hip hop content happening over here. Big shout out to hiphopdx.com, allhiphop.com, djbooth.net, hiphoplately.com, and a couple of places where I'm getting some of these stories from. Let's get right into the business though. Queensbridge rapper King Shooter passed away on Tuesday, May 5th at the age of 24. He was currently signed to Nas's record label, Mass Appeal, but also the offshoot. Well, mostly he was signed to the offshoot label, Street Dreams Records, which is, under the Mass Appeal banner. It's not confirmed just as yet if he died as a result of COVID-19. The brother was 24 years of age, which is sad to hear. Rest in peace to that brother. I did check out some of his music because honestly, I wasn't familiar with him. You know what I'm saying? When I looked it up and I saw, Nas, protege or rapper, artist or whatever passes away, and I was just looking like, well, wow, I didn't know who this cat was. And I looked up some of his music, and his music was cool. I think in a lot of respects, it's unfortunate that, we're living in a time where all these different things are happening and, people are passing away, and it makes it difficult to mourn because there was actually a vigil being held in Queensbridge in his memory, and the police had to shut it down because you can't gather in crowds like that. And, what do you do when someone you care about passes away? Obviously you have to have small gatherings, maybe with a couple of family members. But I know there's a lot of people who probably feel some kind of way about that because, there are people who pass away who got a lot of friends and family and co-workers, and everybody want to pay their respects and can't. So it's just a sad situation when you think about it. But at the end of the day, it's the state we living in. So be safe out there. You know what I'm saying? Eminem says that Tupac is the greatest songwriter of all time. And I quote, he said this: "I feel like he was saying, can you feel me? Because you felt Pac. You can't just listen to Pac. You feel Pac." I agree with that. I think that's a reason why I agree with the feel Pac part. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a reason why hardcore Tupac fans will fight for Tupac to be at the top of every best of list, whether it's greatest songwriter or greatest MC or greatest lyricist or greatest rapper. They will always fight for him to be at the top of that list. Why? Because he's impacted them on a level that makes them look beyond your petty little list. Me personally, greatest songwriter ever, I can't say that, because as a songwriter myself, I think Tupac has written some of the greatest songs in hip hop history. But when you say greatest songwriter, that means like you got a lot of great songs. Now, some people hear that and say, yo, he got hits. No. It's not hits. I mean, Whoop, There It Is was a hit. How difficult was that to write? You know what I'm saying? Maybe it was ingenious to come up with something like that would become a hit. But great songwriters, you could hear it in the fabric of the lyrics. You know what I'm saying? From the concept of the record to what they do with the hook to tie into that concept, what they do with the verses to tie into that concept, how the verses are constructed. It's almost like a great song is almost like a perfect song. Everything comes together on that song. Beat, voice, tone of voice, inflections, where the inflections land, the lyrics themselves. And I think with Tupac, it's not just great songwriting, it's great performance. I think Tupac was a great performer. I think that's what Eminem is kind of getting at when he says, you feel Pac. Well, that's all in the execution, right? Because DMX was straight up barking a couple of years ago, and he had rhymes that wasn't like, lyrical, spiritual, miracle, but people felt DMX. Why? His energy. You know what I'm saying? The flow. He was into it, so you were into it. And I think that's performance. And I think Tupac was great at driving his messages home, mostly when they were positive messages. Because the reason why I wouldn't call him the greatest songwriter of all time, most of, if not all of Tupac's positive, even conscious records are his best music, period. Like, just forget the hip hop genre, just period, right? But then it gets a little dodgy when it comes to, the gangster rap or the hardcore records, right? Not everything is whack. Not everything is good. And there's some great, obviously, there. You know what I'm saying? Like, Against All Odds is pretty dope. But you don't get that many of those out of Tupac. And he got a ton of music. But I don't know. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Maybe you can make a better case than I can for Tupac being the greatest songwriter of all time. DMX calls out Jay-Z for a versus Instagram battle. Now, if you've been under a rock and you're saying to yourself, what is he talking about? Well, there's been these versus battles that have been going on between producers and basically beat battles. And in a lot of cases, you've had a couple of like artists who've had like hit battles. You know what I'm saying? Let's go hit for hit. There was a rumor that, well, not a rumor, but Ja Rule wanted to have a battle with 50 Cent hit for hit, which I think would have broke Instagram. Whatever records that was set, it would have broke it because everybody would have tuned in to see what would happen. But I think it would have been a pretty good battle. 50 Cent declined and said he would rather battle Snoop. He said that would make more sense. No, I think Snoop would wash 50 Cent because 50 Cent's hits are really surround his first album, whereas Snoop Dogg hits, some people who haven't really been paying attention may say, well, it's Doggy Style and all them early joints. Nah, Snoop got hits with Pharrell. He got an extended career. And not to say that 50 Cent doesn't have some older joints that came out, but 50 never really rebounded from his somewhat, falling off as an artist. So it is what it is. But to go back to the DMX versus Jay-Z joint, as far as a battle, I don't think DMX would win, but I think it would be really interesting for a while because DMX has a lot of hits, and he has a lot of hits early in his career, and probably his first 3 albums along with songs he did outside of those albums is enough to at least compete with Jay-Z. But I think Jay-Z having a longer successful career, DMX had a successful career. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Jay-Z's successful career has lasted longer, whereas DMX has kind of fall by the wayside. So Jay-Z has more recent joints that, he can just keep going. So I don't think that would work. And plus, Jay-Z's not going to do that. If you don't know, Jay-Z doesn't tweet. I don't care what you follow. It ain't him. And he doesn't do Instagram. He doesn't do any of that stuff. He doesn't believe in it. He barely wants to take pictures that he hasn't okayed. So there you have it. Don't wait on that one at all. Joey Badass says he doesn't like long albums. And I quote, "Nobody wants to effing listen to that." He literally hates when projects have more than 14 songs. So he wouldn't want to hear a double album. I'm just going to tell y'all like this. I don't disagree. Y'all know this. There was a point in time in hip hop where I wanted nothing more. I wanted nothing more than to get a double album for my favorite artist. It was like the more the merrier. And then I started to realize that, and I did a podcast on double albums. You should check it out. It's on the stream. I started to realize that most hip hop double albums, if they're not great, I don't really listen to them anymore. I don't listen to the Blueprint 2. I listen to songs I like off of there, but I don't listen to it. I don't listen in its entirety. I don't listen to Wu-Tang Forever in its entirety. And I like a lot of songs off of there, but I just don't. I kind of get through that first half, and then I start skipping to the songs I like on the second half. There's probably only 2 albums that I would listen to that are double albums where I can listen to the whole thing. Maybe 3, but right off the top, Life After Death. Not saying I listen all the time, and Tupac's All Eyes on Me. I feel like those are the 2 greatest double albums from a hip hop artist. Now, obviously, there's been others, but in recent years, I found myself like just getting upset when I see somebody got 20 songs on their album. 20, it's 17. Because I feel like it's too much. You know what I'm saying? And why do I feel like that now versus back in the day when I wanted nothing more than a lot of music from some of my favorite artists? Well, I'll tell you, the rap game has changed. And when I think back to when I wanted a favorite artist of mine to make a double album, most artists didn't do that. And really, when you got an album, that's what you got for like 2 years until you heard the next album. But then we got into a time where the mixtape game, rappers started releasing quote unquote mixtapes where they were rhyming over like original beats. And these mixtapes felt like albums. And it was more content. And usually there would be way more songs on a mixtape. And sometimes the mixtapes would be better than the albums they would release. And in a lot of cases, it would almost feel like oversaturation because of the simple fact that you released 2 or 3 mixtapes, then you released an album, and then 2 weeks later, you followed it up with another mixtape. So by the time you like, yeah, my second album, sophomore album coming, you already done gave us like 100 songs. And I've barely had the time to digest any of it, so I'm really sticking to what I like. And I kind of feel like today, I like when I see an album that's like, it's 14 songs. Because I know I'm going to be able to listen to it straight through. It's not going to be this long labor of, it's an hour and a half of my time. You know what I'm saying? Where I'm starting to get tired of hearing the same bars about some of the same things said in different ways. And we live in a society where it's like it's the microwave age. We need everything quick. And it's not just younger cats who feel that way. It's a lot of us older cats who feel like it's exhausting. One more reason before I move on to the next story is forget your favorite artist releasing a lot of music. Everybody's releasing a lot of music. And new artists are popping up every 5 seconds. So obviously you don't like every song that comes out. But at the same time, if you like a lot of what's coming out, how do you have time to really absorb any of it? Especially if all of them talking about releasing a mixtape right after that or right before that. It's almost as if they're forcing you to choose someone to listen to. And a lot of times I find myself doing that. Like doing this podcast, obviously I'm listening to different albums, kind of get a sense of, what's going to be my top 5 of the year, and also just from my personal listening taste. And sometimes I get a barrage of music that I'm interested in, and some of it I forget even came out, wind up missing it, or have to look on social media to see someone else listening to it and be like, oh, right. I forgot that came out. Or I just got to choose which one I want to hear more. And then if I really like the joint that I chose, well, then I probably want to hit rewind and run it back. And there's 20 other albums waiting for me. So that's the thing. I agree with Joey Badass. 14 songs or less is better. Now, no, I don't want the Pusha T 7 songs. That's just too short. I mean, if you're going to do 7 songs, then why not have an album follow that? But I just feel like it's in this day and age, having like 20 something songs is too much. Lil Wayne put out that Last Carter, which I kind of liked, but I never really went back to. He put out The Funeral, which I kind of liked, but I never really went back to because there's too many songs on there, dog. I just want to hear the hot joints. What you got that's hot? Put your little radio singles on there and keep it tight. Save the other stuff for another time where you haven't released music. You know what I'm saying? Y'all got me ranting on here. I don't like to rant. I do, but I don't always rant. Jay Electronica put out some new bars for y'all. He's on a single by a UK producer called Paul Epworth. It's called Love Galaxy. I saw a couple of people post online this question: how many of y'all are still listening to that Jay Electronica album? And part of me, and obviously I'm honestly, I do a lot of research. So when I say a couple of people, I truly mean that. So if you listen to this podcast and you was one of those people, I'm not talking about you individually. I just try to get a beat for what everybody's saying. And if a couple of people are saying the same thing, well, then I'm going to address it. And I kind of felt like some people were saying that to prove a point of it wasn't really as good as you said it was because you don't post about it all the time. Or you haven't posted about it in a long time. Bruh, nobody does that. People only do that when something is the best thing in a while. Like when something is just undeniably hot, somebody will just keep posting about it. Tana Talk 3 was that for me. But I'm not mad at that Jay Electronica and Jay-Z album, because that's what it is. And I do still go back and listen to it. I do. I like a lot of it. I'm not going to deny that. Is it in my top 5 of the year? I don't know yet. I don't think so. It shouldn't be. I'm pretty sure it will be very easy for something to bump that album off, because honestly, there's a point of disappointment in me as a hip hop fan who wanted that, long waited 10 plus years or whatever long it was for a solo Jay Electronica album, and we got a duet album with Jay-Z, but it's a duet album with Jay-Z. So I like Jay-Z a lot. I have a lot of his music. I have every album now that I think about it, and I also like Jay Electronica, so I have to accept it for what it is. It could have been better, but I like what I got. So yes, some of us are still listening to it. Former Slaughterhouse members Joell Ortiz and King Crooked have announced a collaborative album called Hard, H-A-R-D. And the project is mostly dedicated to Fred the Godson, who passed away from COVID-19. Rest in peace to Gordo. I don't know how I feel about this one. Joell Ortiz was like a dude when I first saw him, the NBA Live rap battle, and then he put out his mixtapes, and I felt like he was the one. He was one of those next ones. He was one of those who's going to carry that hip hop torch into the next millennia. And it didn't really happen that way. And he could still spit, but I think he tried to make songs. Remember I was talking about songwriters? I think he tried to make songs. Now I know somebody who's smart out there saying, well, everybody making songs. What are you talking about? He a rap artist. Yes, I know that. Stop eating the crayons. The point of what I'm saying is he stopped doing the thing that got him the notoriety that he has today. Full time. Not that he doesn't still do it, but full time, which is spitting. And it's easy for me to say that because he gave us a lot of that. You know what I'm saying? He gave us a ton of mixtapes, couple of albums where he does that. He was in Slaughterhouse and rapping like that. He did a bunch of features. He been spitting, and I feel him. You know what I'm saying? Yo, time to make some songs, and not all of them are whack. But I think it took him out of the spotlight as far as hip hop fans. I don't think they're checking for him like that. And I think production wise, he needs to find something that works. You know what I'm saying? He needs something that works. I don't know what that is. I hear it sometimes when he's doing projects with other producers, and it's crazy, like the joint he did with Illmind. But it's really not going to move the needle for a lot of hip hop fans, unfortunately, because they're just not paying attention to that stuff. They're not looking that deep. So it is what it is. 50 Cent blamed himself for Lloyd Banks and Tony Yayo's unfulfilled potential in his new book, Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. He basically said that he should have gave them a little bit more game about the business and how to be better at the business and be better artists with the business. I mean, honestly, he would know. People really don't talk about 50 Cent's music and him somewhat fallen off because he got so many other things going on. You just don't think about the music, and that's how you were introduced to him. But I'd be lying if I said I disagreed with him because Lloyd Banks, for those who don't know, he did have a couple of joints after the whole 50 Cent G-Unit thing started to fizzle. He had a couple of hits. Remember the Beamer, Benz, and Bentley? He had some joints, and he could rap. You know what I'm saying? He could rap just as good as anybody else. But he kind of faded. And I remember there's this mixtape that I still rock to this day called Halloween Havoc, I think 2, that Lloyd Banks put out. And it was crazy. Like, he's still nice with it over any track. And Tony Yayo could have, he could have had a run, but Banks could have had a serious run. You know what I'm saying? Serious, like that Pusha T lane where you just know he nice, so that's why you buying it. You just know it's going to be some dope hip hop. But when I saw that Lloyd Banks isn't on social media because Biggie and Tupac wasn't, I thought to myself, he can't be serious. Because when you say that, I'm thinking like, well, what do you mean? Biggie and Tupac did have a choice whether or not they would be on social media, because social media did not really exist unless you was up in a Yahoo chat room or something. By the time they died, that's what it was. And even that wasn't popping like that because everybody didn't have a computer. Everybody didn't have smartphones and all these things to connect with each other. It's not like they made a conscious decision to not be on social media and they were still successful. Then you'd be making a point. But it doesn't make sense. And it does play into the fact that, well, if you hide from the public, then the public will forget about you. And if you ain't right about your business and you got the music out there, like, people haven't even seen Lloyd Banks in years. Now, me, of course, I've seen him, obviously, because when G-Unit released some album not a couple of years back, obviously Lloyd Banks was on there. But it's just sad to even hear that, to even hear Lloyd Banks talk about it, because that just means it was never going to work. It just wasn't. He needed someone else. He couldn't be 50 Cent, right? Lloyd Banks is the type of artist who just needs to be the artist, and that's it. He can't be the artist and the businessman and be socially active on social media for present's sake. That's just not his style. You could tell he's more a quiet dude, soft-spoken, so to speak, and he's just about the bars. But you can't be that. And even when he had his little hits, not little hits, but when he had his hits after post G-Unit, it wasn't like social media wasn't around back then. And it's not like you have to do but so much. I mean, now it's almost an expectation for you to be that active. But at the same time, how are people supposed to know you're doing anything? You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to connect with the people. So I just found that interesting that would be said. And the last topic to end this podcast off, Tekashi 6ix9ine, if you don't know, snitched on his blood brethren, got lesser time, and then got released from prison because of COVID-19. And then recently, he did an Instagram Live for the first time since being released. And I believe it had over 2 million people watching. He also apologized in a lot of respects for snitching. And he said that the code or the street code didn't count. It's 1.9 million, by the way. 1.9 million viewers. One of them wasn't me. But saying that the street code was already canceled when they basically attempted to harm him. Now, I'm not a street dude. I know a little bit about that street code, but at the end of the day, that sounds like a technicality to me. But we about hip hop. We ain't about street codes. But not only did he have an Instagram live with 1.9 million people watching and Meek Mill arguing from a distance, because you know he Twitter fingers, boy. He living up to that name. Tekashi 6ix9ine put out a video. The name of the song is Gooba. It's rainbowed out. It'll save you some time. And it's nothing but chicks just dancing and twerking in the background. And as a song, like, I like the beat. The song is okay for what it is, kind of what I expected. But at the end of the day, I expected it to be mostly trash because he's not good. He's not good as a rapper. I hate to break it to some of y'all, but he's just not good as a rapper. He never has been. But we all know how he came about. It's not what he does. Rapping isn't what he does. So, I mean, it is what he does for a living, but you know what I mean. He ain't trying to be the best MC ever. He trying to make a lot of money and have fun. And God bless him. Because you better stay in that rainbow room. But then again, who knows who's protecting him at this point? Because there's certain people, if they're protecting you, nobody in the hood's going to touch you. They've shown that. First of all, before we end this podcast, I want to say thank you to all the first responders, to all the essential workers who are out there doing their job, going out every day, risking their own health to do jobs, whether that be nurses or doctors or people who are delivering your mail, things like that. Just so there's some sort of normalcy in trying to bring this situation or flatten this situation as far as the medical field goes. I just want to thank everyone who does that, because a lot of people assume, that's them over there, but there's hip hop fans who are nurses and who are doctors and who are first responders, you know what I'm saying, and who are on the front lines of this. So I want to thank them. I also want to say rest in peace to the people who have passed away from COVID-19, from the hip hop community and outside the hip hop community. It's just a sad situation that unfortunately we have to deal with, but keep safe, y'all. You know what I'm saying? Social distancing. If you can do it, do it. If you can't because of work, you know what I'm saying, get that mask, the glove, wash them hands, be safe, and hold your head, man, and keep listening to content like this. This is one of the reasons why I create this, because there's someone who will listen to this and feel like the world is still going on and they're not sitting here trying to micromanage the apocalypse themselves or them and their co-workers. That's going to do it for me for this week. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at VegasWorldINC. And you can also go to Hip Hop Now Podcast Facebook page. Yes, I have a Facebook page. It's been there for a year or two now. All you got to do is go to Facebook.com/hiphop right now. Also know that this podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts. So it doesn't matter where you get your podcast. All you got to do is search for the words within that podcast app. Hip Hop Now Podcast. Locked in. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Comment. And most importantly, share this podcast with people you know enjoy this kind of content. Until next time, y'all. I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace. Drop it on the random.